For the first time in like 6 weeks or even longer than that, I don't remember how long it's been. The two OG co-hosts are back. Jordan, I missed you, buddy. I missed you so much. How are you
I
doing?
missed you too. Well, it's great to be back. I'm so happy I get to be back on my podcast. I was out and about traveling the west coast of the United States and Canada. Um, I did some scouting in Las Vegas, the new track. I walked the main strip, which was very nice. And I was very much near my phone to be around all of the news from the summer break. And I'm excited to break it down with Jonah, give you guys my thoughts, because I listened to the previous podcast where you guys spoke about a lot of the events that happened.
Yeah.
Uh, and for those watching on YouTube, you'll notice Jonah and I's virtual background. Mine is my favorite tweet of the summer.
This is my Alonzo deck chair that I kept from the episode that I recorded with Alan. So
Classic. So yeah, it's been a great summer, but I'm back and we're ready to tackle the last 11-ish races of the
no,
season. So
yeah, I think it's less than that. I think we have 8 left.
eighth left. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
And
Coming up with math.
including
But yes, we
including
have
three including three back to back. Belgium is the beginning of a triple header.
we
Um,
go to the Dutch Grand Prix next, and then we finish off in
yeah.
Monza.
Hey, listen, Monza's gonna be beautiful because the practice day of Monza is my birthday. So
It's a great day to have your birthday on.
a fantastic day to have my birthday. So, anyways, we're here to talk about the Belgian Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen won from Sergio Perez in second and Carlos Sainz in third. But before we talk about the race itself and everything, we have more news to cover since the last time um, that I recorded. First off, Ricardo was officially announced to be kicked out of McLaren, and I put a poll up on my personal Instagram saying, "Did McLaren make the right decision?" And there was an overwhelming yes. And one person that voted no on that poll was one Mr. Co-host Jordan. So I'd like you to explain your decision a little bit.
Yeah, look, okay. I think I am a very big believer in that. And I've spoken about this on numerous occasions with you, Jonah, in our driver rankings episode, in driver swap episode. For those who've listened, I've spoken about this many, many times. And I am a big, big, big believer in the fact that when you switch teams, it takes you about a year and a little bit more than that to get accustomed to the new team. We can just see it by looking at an onboard camera. Every steering wheel for each team is different with different buttons, and each car has a different engine that works a different way, that works a little different with the aerodynamics that works differently with that car. And so when you switch from a different engine and different car to another different engine and different car, keep in mind it's the first time he's in a Mercedes engine powered car because he's been with Red Bull before that, then a Renault powered car. There's a big, big learning curve there. And you have to have that year and a half to really find your stride. And on top of that, he was dealt a bad card with the new technical regulations this year and their car not being great. So I'm a big believer in that he would perform really well in a third year with McLaren. And that for that reason, because he could get accustomed to it throughout this year, new regulations, I say that he deserves at least a chance at one more year. And if it doesn't work out then, I say he gets the boot. But I really think that he has a lot of experience to bring to a team. He's the only McLaren winner in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
I think I think that yes, he's been off the pace from Lando, but I really think that given a third year, he can prove a lot of haters wrong. And that's why I voted no on that poll.
I think I look, Daniel Ricciardo won a race with McLaren. We're never going to be able to take that away from him. However, I think that that was just a flash in the pan because, I mean, you said, yeah, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it and the technical regulations. But look, I'm going to be honest with you. The technical regulations should have no effect on a driver's talent. Um, because some of the best drivers are the ones that are able to make the most out of the car that they're given. And if there's a new technical regulation that comes in and Ricardo leaves to go to another team, it's not like he's going to do any better at that team, and it's the regulations that are doing him in. Um, and look, just being completely destroyed by Norris since he's been here, with the exception of that Monza win, for me, it's like the writing has been on the wall. And I wasn't a huge fan of him going to Renault in the first place. Um, and now there are rumors that he might be going back to Alpine. Like, who even knows at this point? But I think that it was time for Ricardo um to leave McLaren, just because, especially with all the rumors of Piastri going to McLaren, that it's he might as well just leave on his own terms instead of being forced out in a way, and having to deal with that holdout money.
Yeah, I'm sure that they paid him a nice chunk of money to have that contract
I heard it
term,
was something like $22 million.
which is crazy. That but that's the business. It's a
Yeah,
business, lots of legal issues there, and that's the business. So they definitely paid him a big chunk of money. $22 million is definitely a lot. I
with
think that
22 million dollars, you could have almost 2 years of Connor McDavid. So
and with $22 million, you can have I mean, with the cost cap, it's different these days, but you can have a lot more wiggle room in terms of damages
yeah,
and
exactly.
upgrades. But that's besides the point. I think that he deserves a third year because he has shown with his experience that he is a great driver. He's talented. He's not some rookie coming into F1 that needs to perform in any car. It's not like he's Yuki Tsunoda, where if you're off the pace, it's only your second year in F1. You gotta either it will go big or go home at this point, because
Hmm.
your second year you haven't shown any experience yet, whereas Ricardo
Yeah,
showed a lot of experience at Red Bull. When he was with Max Verstappen in his early days and when he was with Vettel. So
yeah.
um it's it's very, to me, I think that Ricardo's a great guy and I don't want to see his personality leave the F1 grid. And if it's
I
not a
think
McLaren, I do he does still deserve a seat.
I think that Ricardo's personality would do so great in NASCAR. I think that I think Ricardo loves the US. If he has the opportunity to stay in the US, he would do it. Like NASCAR, IndyCar, or something like
Yes, he
that.
spent his entire summer break in Los Angeles, from what I've heard. Um,
Exactly. So I feel like if Ricardo stays in the US for his next racing series, that would be amazing. Like I would probably start watching IndyCar or NASCAR if Daniel Ricciardo joins. And on top of that, Kimi Räikkönen is back in NASCAR now. Last week he raced at Watkins Glen and spun out, but that's besides the point. He still is back racing in NASCAR, so you never know.
yeah, he's after saying that he's not going to race anymore and spend more time with his family. Oh, look where he is.
He's in NASCAR.
Same thing happened with Romain Grosjean. When he retired, he's going to spend more time with his family. Up IndyCar. So
Exactly.
it happens to the best of them. Right now, Ricardo is at that phase where in every interview he's like, it's F1 or bust. He's going along the trajectory of him saying that, but then ultimately ending up in America with the drivers over there.
Yeah. Um, Another key part of key piece of news, aka the worst kept secret in Formula One. Audi is finally announced that they were entering Formula One in 2026. Um, Now, Jordan, first off, how psyched are you for Audi to enter F1? And second, how do you think that they're going to enter enter F1? Is it going to be their own team? Is it going to be buying something out? Is it going to be, I don't know, a partnership of some sort? Who knows?
Yeah, I really think that Audi's gonna have to. And first of all, Audi, great brand to have in sports. We really see, the German brands coming into the sport. Um, Mercedes has a monopoly there, so it's going to be interesting to see. What I'm really disappointed is that we have three German teams now, or three German car manufacturers involved in the sport. I didn't see it. I don't see a German Grand Prix on this calendar, and I don't think we're going to have one next year either because of the saturation there is with China potentially getting two races. and Qatar coming in. So a
Wait,
lot of, and American
I'm
races.
I'm blanking right now. Well, what's the third German team?
Well, there's Porsche that announced that they're going
Oh
to come
yeah,
into
Porsche
F1.
buying Red Bull. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. And so, which also is a part of the same group, the Volkswagen group.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
just there's three German car manufacturers involved in the sport. However, there is no Hockenheim or Nürburgring, two of the most amazing tracks, two of the most amazing grade A tracks on available around the world that are not on the Formula One calendar.
Yeah.
So that's my first remark. My second remark is that I think, and what I've read online, is that they'll be coming in as a engine supplier.
Hmm.
They will be making engines. Maybe, just maybe, there'll be some customer teams like Williams who's looking for a new engine, or they're trying to move up the grid. McLaren also is trying to move up the grid. They could be also a customer team. And that way they don't have to buy an engine from a direct competitor that's also on the grid with them.
Yeah.
That is Mercedes. The same rationale went through Christian Horner's head when switching from a Renault engine back in, I believe it was 2017,
Yeah.
to a Honda engine for the 2018 season. He said, I don't want to buy a Renault engine. They're competing against me. There's something happening. I want a fresh new engine. And they brought in Honda to the sport. And that was an amazing addition for them because not only did they get a fresh engine for two teams, but it made them win the world championship
And
in
now
20.
and now on top of that, with Porsche buying a 50% stake in Red Bull, with the RBPT, you know, structure that's already been put in place with that extra Porsche help, they could build an engine that's built for that Red Bull car.
Absolutely. So I personally believe it's going to be as an engine supplier. That's what I've been reading online. That's what the rumors are saying amongst all the um, F1 Twitter heads out there. Um, and yeah, so I think that there's a big possibility and a big market for an engine that comes from an independent um, manufacturer now that there is no really independent manufacturer now that Honda's gone.
Yeah. I've heard other well no. I haven't heard any rumors of that sense, but I'm trying to put two and two together here. I think that Audi is going to have their own team because Alfa Romeo, the same day that they announced that Audi was going to join F1 in 2026, Alfa Romeo announced that they were ending its partnership with Sauber at the end of 2023. So, for all you know, with that partnership ending for Sauber, they need to look for some sort of new title sponsor or some new money put in to save the team. And when you have basically Pizza Planet money when you're Audi and when you're the Volkswagen group, you could pull a Lawrence Stroll 2.0 and take a currently mediocre team and push them to the top with that extra money and not have to put in the new capital to build everything from scratch. So I think that the principle of Audi investing with Sauber, currently Alfa Romeo, seems like a more reasonable idea.
Look, I like the idea. Also, the Lawrence Stroll component that you just mentioned is very interesting to me because I listened to the Beyond the Grid podcast that Jonah introduced me to. I listened to the Lawrence Stroll episode,
It's a
and in
nice
that episode,
episode, eh?
it's a good episode. There's one with Mike Crack that just came out recently that I haven't listened
Yeah.
to. I've been traveling, so haven't had the chance. But in the Lawrence Stroll episode that I think he recorded last year at the end of last year, maybe he said that when the team rebranded to Aston Martin, a bunch of top tier brands came flocking just because they wanted to be associated with the Aston Martin name because Aston Martin Lagonda, the car manufacturer, the road car manufacturer, had such high prestige already in the market amongst luxury car enthusiasts. And so high class companies like Saudi Aramco and Cognizant Consulting Group flocked to Aston Martin because they want to be associated with that branding. You know, these companies have high net worth clients. Saudi Aramco is one of the most if not the most valuable company, one of the most valuable companies in the entire world.
Yeah.
Same thing can potentially happen with Audi, and take that sponsorship money, develop their fan base, develop their headquarters, because we know that the Alfa Romeo headquarters, I think, was located in Switzerland,
Yeah.
was not, the most developed. So they could use that extra money for those reasons. Personnel,
It
Lawrence
could
Stroll's
be it could be like the Aston Martin campus that
and
they're
it's
currently
very
building.
interesting that you mentioned that. So just like to develop that idea, that's a really good idea to develop off of. But I still am going to stick with my answer. I think there's still going to be
Yeah.
an engine supplier. I think also with Andretti's team, that's also going to
That's
potentially come
rumored to
into.
come in. How many drivers are we gonna have on the grid in 2026?
That's the thing. So if we have like we have 12 teams, maybe 14 if Audi comes in with a whole new other team without the Alfa Romeo Sauber partnership. We're not 14 teams on the grid. That's a large grid to have, and I don't know if F1 wants to go there because they love talking about the 20 best drivers. 20 is it's an even, zeroed off number. It sounds great. The 24 best drivers, it doesn't sound, it's not as marketable.
We've had some pretty big grids in the last decade, though.
In the Lotus days, in the
When
early
like there was
2000s.
like Marussia and Manor and Virgin and HRT and all those teams. There were four teams that started up in 2010, and none of them exist right now. But that's besides the point.
Right. But I think
So
that,
at one point, we had whatever it was, 14 teams. So who says that it won't be done again? You never know.
yeah, fair enough. I think that the only thing that I'll say is that it seems like with the recent moves of Formula One, Stefano Domenicali really is focusing on growing the sport internationally as well as in Europe. And he's making pretty bold moves to do that. Moves that are highly marketable, moves that sound great and are very, very, very um, they roll off the tongue and are easily understandable to somebody who doesn't like F1.
Yeah.
20 teams is very understandable. Somebody who doesn't like F1. Having Audi enter the sport is somebody very understandable who doesn't follow F1. Having an individual like Mario Andretti enter the sport, it's harder to grasp. It's also harder to market to an American audience. It's harder
Yeah.
to market to people who are just getting into F1. So
People,
for
but people in the US know of Andretti just because of their ventures in IndyCar and in NASCAR.
right, it's
It
just
might do something, but it'll be for like NASCAR and IndyCar fans.
my point that I'm trying to get across is that it's just going to be harder to market to people who don't follow F1 consistently but want to try and get into it because they're fans from the Netflix show or because they're fans because their friends like it or have seen it on Twitter or on Instagram. Um, Jensen Button's coming out with a new show on Disney Plus. I'm sure that's going to increase the viewership of a Formula One too. So all those
Yeah,
new
about Braun.
exactly.
Well, let's see.
Some hot topics to talk about always in Formula One.
Yeah. Now we're gonna go back into the race world a little bit. Even before the weekend started, we had so many people take grid penalties. Um, we had Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris, Schumacher, and Bottas. Am I missing someone? I don't think so.
Ocon.
Um, oh, and Ocon, yes. So there were six people that were starting from the back of the grid, and I think that this could it could have basically been because they actually developed their cars over the summer break and that um they need to take engine penalties to see the true effects of their upgrades. Or maybe it was just like, whatever, we're not going to do anything anyways this race. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's plan A that you just mentioned. Uh the summer break is very good for developing your car. Um we saw Aston Martin really move up the field during the race
Temporarily.
temporarily, showing some good signs. I think that shows some improvement. Um, you know, we saw Mercedes not have as much qualifying pace, but George Russell really performing well, another top 5 finish. So I really think that, um, you know, based on a lot of the press that happened before the Belgian Grand Prix, a lot of teams worked on their car, and I think that's what it was.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I think Martin Brundle said in the pre-race show that not one driver was in their original qualifying position from yesterday because of all of the shakeup. Yeah,
Not one.
not one. The position they finished in qualifying, not one of them started the race in that position.
Yeah, well, interesting now, isn't it?
Crazy shakeup. Williams was in P6, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I had. That's what I wanted to tackle next is Alex Albon got into Q3, qualified P9, and ended up being bumped up to P6. Lance Stroll got bumped up from P14 to P9 after being P4 and FP2. Sainz started on poles, Perez started in second, Alonso was P3.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy the shakeup. Um, I'm starting to with that qualifying performance from Albon. I really want to touch on this with you. Is it that Nicholas Latifi is really underperforming the car, or is Albon really overachieving in that car?
Nicholas Latifi is underperforming. Like, come on. It can't be, you can't have that big of a gap to your teammate, no matter how good your teammate is. Like, even for the amount of flack that we gave Valtteri Bottas last year after being like wrecked by Lewis Hamilton, he was still up there and still consistently finished on the podium. It wasn't like he was finishing in P7 when Lewis was winning the race, you know? Like, Albon's getting points and Latifi's at the back of the grid and the only driver getting lapped. Like, that can't happen. Seriously.
Yeah, it's problematic, especially for Williams, that is a team that really wants to move up the grid, that
Yeah.
finally has the money to do so. Um, they don't need a driver like Latifi anymore, and
Yeah.
I think he's
Listen,
gone
I
next year.
called it. I called it like a few episodes ago. Latifi is out and being replaced by Logan Sargent.
Yeah, I think he's out next year.
But who's replacing him? I say it's Logan Sargent.
I don't know who's going to replace them. I haven't done my due diligence.
Yeah.
However, so I'm not going to make a premature call, but I will say that he is out next year. Williams doesn't need the money anymore. They can Lavanza could kiss them goodbye. Uh, it's yeah.
The company that I currently work for used to sponsor Williams, and then that whole then like they sponsored them under the Rokit Williams thing that didn't even make it to the actual race,
Oh
and
right.
then the sponsorship just disappeared.
Oh why?
I don't know what happened. I don't know what
Um,
happened. But like my dad has a Rokit Williams shirt with the company that I currently work for on the branding, like on the sleeve of the shirt, and it's just not there anymore. It never showed up. It was like it was for 2020, and on the car and everywhere in 2020 it didn't even show up. So
yeah, that got probably pulled because of COVID.
yeah, probably.
But yeah, so let's move on to the race itself because the race
Yeah.
itself had a very interesting start. Carlos Sainz got off clean. Sergio Perez got lost a bit of positions at the beginning,
Yeah.
gained it all back because of a collision with Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
What's your take
Thank
on
you.
this
You
start?
just named the three first points that I wanted to talk about in the race.
So let's talk about it. Jonah, take it away. What are your thoughts?
I can't believe that Lewis Hamilton actually took blame for something that he did. Isn't that
Yeah,
amazing? What
what
happened?
the second that it happened
Yeah.
and we saw the replay, all I was thinking in my head was last year in Monza when Max
Yeah.
and Lewis collided, and Max's radio message was, "That's what you get when you don't leave the space." I thought the exact.
No, but that
I
was an
thought,
Alonso message. That was an Alonso message from years before.
yeah. So I'm
All the
hearing the
time you
Max
have to leave
Verstappen.
it in space.
I'm listening in my head the Max Verstappen message from last year. I'm like, yeah, Lewis, not leaving space, like in England, like in the UK last year. And he admitted to it. So
Yeah,
good on him for admitting to it. He had a 100% completion streak in 2022 up to this point. That is no more, and is
not anymore.
and you know, Alonso could have a great start. It's really sucks that we didn't see more of Alonso, especially because he's an Aston Martin driver next year, and
Yeah.
we want to see the potential that he's got.
Uh, I mean, I my thoughts on Alonso going to Aston Martin are their thoughts. So look, when I saw Lewis Hamilton fly, like literally jump up, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be absolutely horrible. I was watching with my dad this morning and I let out a very audible gasp because I saw it from the upper camera angle and I was like, oh my God, he's going to fly into the barrier and this is going to be absolutely awful. Um, but another thing that I want to talk about related to that is the message that Alonso left after the collision. It was, this guy only knows how to start and finish first. And I think that that's the biggest shot that I've heard recently at Lewis Hamilton, especially since in the post race interview. I mean, over the course of this season in general, Lewis Hamilton has been not so humble. He's been kind of depressed, to be honest with you. So, you know,
Look, he has nothing to back up his claims this season, which
yeah,
is kind of interesting. And look, when you're not performing to your normal standard, I don't blame him for being upset. You could definitely tell by his rhetoric in the media that he's upset.
yeah.
Not only is I would argue that I think George Russell is consistently outperforming him too.
George
Um,
Russell is the true shitbox whisperer.
yeah, he's very much outperforming him. So, DNF aside, I don't blame him for being upset. Alonso is a savage for that comment. Absolute savage. I hope he brings
Future
that
Aston
savagery.
Martin driver Fernando Alonso, absolute savage.
Yeah, honestly, I hope he brings this savagery to the wheel next time around.
I thought Seb was gonna get a podium today.
No, I did not think so.
Well, because he looked pretty good for like half the race. And at one point he was in P4. I was like, oh my God, is because Seb had an amazing start. Um and then I mean he still ended up finishing with some decent points. I think he was P7 if I'm not mistaken. And you know, Aston Martin might actually finish eighth in front of AlphaTauri at the end of this year. So who knows? Um, but I thought like Seb was on a major roll today, and it sucks because he announced his retirement, and I wish that we saw more of this Seb over the course of the last few years.
Yeah, look, nobody. I haven't said my thoughts on Seb's retirement yet, but yeah, look, Aston Martin was pretty good today. I'll give them that. They're good compared to their standards,
Yeah,
but you know, when Alonso was asked why he's going to Aston Martin, they're technically now in ninth. He's going down a couple grid positions from Alpine. He's like, he was asked, why are you going to Aston Martin? They're clearly worse on paper. He was like, doesn't matter if you're second or ninth, you're not number one, so I don't care. They have the highest potential to be number one. So look,
mm,
clearly Lawrence Stroll convinced him. He's not the type of guy that would go to a team to like he's the type of guy to go to because he does believe they're number one.
yeah.
So or they will be in a couple of years. So I'm uh I'm convinced that there's good times are coming for Aston Martin.
Um, one thing that we could also talk about is our boy Nicholas Latifi ending Valtteri Bottas's race.
We know how much I really like Valtteri Bottas, and
Yeah,
in an Alfa Romeo, he's hasn't done too terribly. So
he did well in the first few races, and then now it's just tapered off a little bit. And I don't know if that's the car or if that's him.
I'm not sure either, but for Alfa Romeo standards, he hasn't been doing terribly, is what I'll
Yeah,
say.
and Joe hasn't been doing badly either.
No. So it's I wanted to see more from him, but it was very sad to see Nicholas Latifi, of all people, him continue his race, but Bottas not.
Yeah.
It was also like just a stupid oversteer into the gravel that he had.
Exactly. He oversteered into the gravel. You can't make that kind of mistake. You're a Formula One driver, and it's been like 3 years already. So, like, after your third year, you can't be doing that.
Yeah, it's a little much. Yeah, so I would like to see more of Bottas, but glad those are the only two DNFs. Let's talk about Charles Leclerc
Yeah,
with
I
his
was gonna say, let's talk
decision
about Ferrari.
to pit early and then realize, oh, it's gonna be a two-stop race.
Yeah,
Degradation is high. Deg is not what we expected it to be.
I am like you've been traveling the world during the biggest joke of the last few races in Ferrari history, because just every single week, Ferrari's just been making these kind of stupid strategy mistakes, and it's unbelievable how, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing another time and expecting a different result. Ferrari, seriously, what is going on?
My big take, I haven't been on this podcast in a while to comment on this because I think the last podcast I was on was maybe the Canadian Grand Prix,
It
or
was
was
the Canadian Grand
it
Prix.
was the Canadian Grand Prix, and Ferrari, it was that was the race where Carlos Sainz had in the bag, but just couldn't pull it off. And I haven't seen any real Ferrari blunders for the first, that was round 7 or 8. There weren't
Yeah.
really any real blunders up until that point. My whole take on the Ferrari situation simply has to do with their communication and delegating who makes the calls.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Brundle said something really interesting today. They asked in the middle of the race what Charles Leclerc wants to do. They didn't say, "Oh,"
Exactly.
they
What
didn't say,
was
"Oh,
that?
we're doing Plan D. We're doing Plan B." They asked him what he wanted to do. So my whole theory right now is that they probably got so upset after the first time it happened, and instead of fixing what they should have done or fixing what they did to do what they should have done in terms of strategy and having it be a call from the higher ups, I think that they got so frustrated, or the driver, specifically Leclerc, got so frustrated. He's like, "No, I'm going to call the shots now."
Yeah.
And that suddenly cued this imbalance of who calls the shots.
And
Is it going
then
to
and then
be
Ferrari just let him do it.
Yeah, and then that just causes a big, big, big problem when it comes to, having to make a split-second decision. They're not sure what the decision is going to be, but more than that, they're not sure who should make the decision.
Yeah.
And to me, knowing who can take what calls is very important in Formula One. And I noticed, just based off that little thing, that it's probably a big issue. I
They need
think
to
that
get their act together.
I think that they need
Seriously.
to figure out who is on top of the hierarchy,
Yeah.
who should be making the calls based on what data. Should it be data that comes within the car, data outside of the car? And if it's both, find a way to compromise to use both sets of data to make a decision together, and not have to be one time Charles made a decision, the
Yeah.
next time it's the engineers.
On top of that, I'm gonna go back to Aston Martin. Aston Martin they fired their head of strategy, um, I think before this race, and they brought in a new head of strategy because they realized that some of their strategy, particularly towards Vettel, was just absolutely disgusting. And Ferrari, I mean, in my opinion, Ferrari needs to do the same thing. Like they're already 90, what, Charles is 90 something points behind Max after with 8 races left. I mean, he's going to need to win every single race, with Max finishing like in P4 every single race for him to be able to win the championship. Like, you
Which is
can't
very
make that kind of
unrealistic.
blunder when you have what could potentially be the fastest car on the grid.
Yeah, it's very disappointing to see. Um, yeah, yeah,
That's it. Get it together, Ferrari.
yeah. And I want to see them win. I want to see the Italian team win. I want to hear the Monegasque anthem. Charles Leclerc is a great guy. I hear he's a great chess player, a great piano player, loves playing paddle. You know, great dude, always good to the fans. I want to see him win.
Yeah. I played paddle for the first time last week. It was fun. I enjoyed that.
I'm sure it was. It sounds a lot of fun. There's a court near me actually.
Oh, in that case, let's go.
Yeah,
we'll play some together. We'll like Photoshop Lance and Esteban or something like that
yeah, it'd be funny.
there we
Uh,
go. Some great
but
social
yes,
media content.
so now we spoke about Ferrari, but let's speak about who's ahead. Red Bull,
The
the Raging Bulls.
absolute the absolute domination of Max Verstappen today was absolutely unreal. Like this man started from 14th place, and one key thing that I wrote down was Max pits and still has 21 seconds of a gap to
Yeah,
second place to his teammate Sergio Perez. Like this guy, this is unreal levels of domination that I have seen over the last few races. And I don't think that maybe since we've started this podcast, we've seen some super dominant races by Hamilton, but I think that Max Verstappen kind of just put his stamp on his era today because of the absolute destruction that 19 other drivers had to witness today by Max Verstappen.
yeah. I really think that um we're seeing, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I think we're seeing peak Max Verstappen. Um,
For all you know, this might not even be peak.
I think that this is a peak, and I think the rest is a plateau. The peak is a plateau. We're going to
Mm.
see a plateau, this domination, probably for the rest of the season, because with Ferrari not making the right calls and the rest of the grid just being, in terms of pure pace, way behind Red Bull as a team,
Yeah.
uh, it's very unrealistic that we see anybody come close to Max Verstappen from here to the end of the season.
It's it's unbelievable. And I mean, credit to Red Bull and credit to Max for driving like an absolute maniac. But clearly, what it does it mean that Red Bull is just too good right now, or have the other teams just not developed their car as much, or just got their complete design wrong for the years that they've spent developing for this new regulation?
There's something about Max where he is just too good, because when you are 40 seconds ahead of your teammate after he started in P2 and you came from P14, there's an issue there. He is a pure beast. He's in top form right now, and we see nobody that's close to him. He is relaxed, he is composed, and he is confident.
I
That
think
is the
that's
key.
exactly what it is.
It's his confidence that's just brewing, and he's gonna win his home Grand Prix next weekend again, and it's just crazy to see.
I mean, we're we're watching some beautiful history being made. And as much as, neither of us are huge fans of, you know, domination and one guy continuing to win, it's fun to watch sometimes.
I don't want to see. I don't know. I want to see domination. I don't want to see it every single time. Unfortunately, in the first half of the season, it was almost every single time.
Well, I think in like the second half of the first half of the season, it was that case. Ferrari
Yeah,
had a decent shot in the first few races of the season, like they won in Bahrain. Um, they did not win in Saudi. never mind. Like they had a decent stroll of races. Haha. Um, but yeah, I this is just unreal moves by Red Bull, and Ferrari's blunders are definitely contributing to it, but you can't deny that Max is just on a completely other level from the 19 other drivers on the grid.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah,
something to watch. I think we are watching history because
yeah,
I think that if this continues, I think that if this continues for years to come, maybe two or three, Max could be the most dominant driver to ever drive in Formula One.
yeah. It could
It's
be.
very possible because yes, Lewis had his 7 years, but those 7 years were highly contested. There were the Seb Vettel years that were very contested.
Yeah.
His team, Nico Rosberg, beat him in one and was very close in the previous two. Um,
Whoa, Nico Rosberg beat Lewis Hamilton? I didn't even know that. It's not like he makes it known to every single person that he's talked to since
did,
the day he won that championship.
did you know that it was done in the same machinery too? It was
Yeah. It almost reminds me of that time where Nico Rosberg beat Lewis Hamilton with equal machinery in
equal
2016.
machinery. Yeah. So yeah, so it's just I think he could potentially go down as the most dominant driver in Formula
Yeah.
One history.
Oh, and on top of that, immediately after the race, Leclerc got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Because
They didn't have enough bad luck.
exactly. You know the meme of the guy in the water polo, um, like playing water polo and then dumping a bottle of water on his head.
No,
That
no.
you've never seen that? Okay, it's hilarious. But anyways, people who are listening will get it. It's this guy playing water polo, and then in trying to hydrate himself, he dumps a bottle of water, like plastic bottle of water, on his head while he's in the pool playing water polo. That's like Leclerc, and then the water bottle being his 5-second penalty.
Oh my. Speaking of water, we're gonna have a race along the water next week at Zandvoort.
We're going to Zandvoort, and it's September already. Can you
And
believe it?
it's yeah, I start school tomorrow. My second year of law school starts tomorrow.
And
Um,
surprisingly, for the first time in my life, I'm not going back to school. So
yeah.
yeah,
Jonah's gonna
I graduated.
yeah,
So
Jonah's employed and graduated. He's far gone. He's long gone
yeah, Jonah's employed and graduated. It's been a wild 21, almost 22 years
of
in 2 weeks
education.
from now of education.
But yes, Zandvoort next week and JJF1 podcast tradition, let's say, he's making one bold prediction for next week. They rarely come true. We do
No,
them anyway.
we've never been wrong. We've never been right. Not once.
No, I think I've been right like twice, but that's about it. In the
Yeah,
2 years we've been doing this,
I've never been right.
let's try and be right this time. Jonah, what is your bold prediction?
Valtteri Bottas is getting on the podium.
Oh my! I said that he was going to get 2 podiums this season. I said not
Yeah.
one, but two. But you said that Aston Martin was going to win its race twice. So that was our bold prediction for the season. May I remind all the listeners? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think mine is going to happen either. Um, I also said Lewis Hamilton is going to win the world championship as like my serious bold prediction.
Yeah, well, I said Leclerc was going to win the championship. So,
And now we're saying Max is the most dominant driver in F1 history. So
yeah,
that shows you that's happening, going
things
down.
change over the course of like 3
So
weeks.
you say Bottas on the podium.
Yes.
I say that we're gonna have Ricardo's salty redemption to McLaren, and he will wind up P3.
Hot takes here at the JJF1 podcast.
Yes.
Well, let's see what happens in actually 7 days' time because we recorded on race day. Um,
Yes. Our
so
raw reaction.
yeah, Jordan, I am so happy to have you back on the podcast. Um, I hope you enjoyed your summer break. So
I did.
let's get locked and loaded for the rest of the season for the 8 races that are left. And if you want to join us on that journey, feel free to like our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram at the JJF1 podcast. And we will see you for the next episode. See
See
ya.
ya.